You're listening to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, episode 16. Hey everyone, I am back with another great episode, and I am so excited about what I have for you today. However, before we get into that, I want to say how unbelievably grateful I am for the support and growth the show has gotten since the release of my episode with Madison. I love that as my show continues to grow, so does my message I hope to spread about promoting the equine industry and the amazing people I bring onto the show. And today's guest is no exception. I had the absolute privilege to sit down and talk with someone who has worked in the equine industry for over 20 years now at an equine breeding facility here in northern Colorado. Jake Dahl is the owner of Vista Equine, Colorado, and I thought it was perfect timing to have him come on the podcast to talk about all things breeding season, since it is February and that is the crazy and exciting time of year for all breeders and around the country. We talk about so many great things in this episode, from what to expect this time of year during breeding season, what the future holds for breeding horses in the equine industry, and where Jake predicts it will go into the future as we work together to breed smarter, stronger, and more talented equine athletes across all disciplines. I loved hearing Jake's thoughts and opinions on how we have improved breeding lines over the decades through research, stronger genetics, and the passion we have brought to the industry and breeding the best horses for all. If you love horse breeding and want to learn more, you are in for a treat. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Jake. Hey, and welcome to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, hosted by yours truly. My name is Abby Carpenter, and I am a cowgirl and equestrian through and through. I started this podcast wanting to make more of an impact in the equine industry. That's why I am making it my mission to help promote the industry to the public through sharing my love for horses through education and bringing other experts and professionals onto the podcast with me to discuss important topics that impact the horse community. So whether you are a crazy horse lady like me, want to learn more about horses, or want to learn more about the industry, you've come to the right place. On this podcast, we will be talking about ownership, horsemanship, fitness, faith, breeds, and so much more. We believe that it doesn't matter what type of saddle you ride in or the breed of horse you may ride. We all contribute to this community to make it great, and that there is always something to learn from the back of your horse. So grab a coffee and get ready to take some notes, and let's get started. This is the Educated Cowgirl Podcast. All right, well, hello, Jake, and welcome to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast.
Well, thank you
again for sitting down with me. I know it's a busy time of year.
Yeah, no problem. We sure appreciate you doing it.
Yeah. All right, so to kick us off, can you introduce yourself to the listeners, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself?
You think everybody's ready for a fun fact about Jake Dahl? I'm Jake Dahl. I'm the owner of Vista Equine, Colorado. In March, I will have been here for 25 years. A fun fact about Jake Dahl. There's so many.
Yeah.
One of the fun facts is people that really know me well know that I was dropped on my head twice before I was even a week old.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Did that affect, you growing up at all, or?
No, but I think it affected me as an adult. Like, I think a lot of the things I say or do, people get it. Once they know I was dropped on my head twice as a kid, they're like, I understand Jake now.
Yeah. Nice. So with that background a little bit, and you've worked in the industry for so many years. Can you tell us about how you got started with horses and your background, and then what made you decide to go the breeding route?
Okay. So I grew up on a ranch in northeastern Nevada. We had to ride. We didn't get to ride. We had to ride. Mm-hmm. And I always loved horses. Always just had an infatuation with them. So fast forward, went through 4-H and all that stuff. Fast forward to college, wanted to be a veterinarian, but met people that were just equine science, and I'm like, all right, that's more my style of deals. So switched my major to equine science, got a job at Equine Reproduction Lab, feeding and cleaning. Was fortunate enough to have Dr. Squires ask me to handle stallions for short courses, and started getting more into the breeding deal. And I've always been interested in breeding, especially genetics, crossing this line on this line and getting this. So graduated from CSU. Vaughn and Jill Cook, the owners of Royal Vista Equine, gave me the job as a farm manager at Royal Vista Equine. I still, they probably don't think it's a mistake now, but man, my first week here, I thought they made the biggest mistake of their lives. But put my head down and worked hard, and here I am today. So
great, that's awesome. So by the time this episode comes out, breeding season will pretty much be in full swing.
Yep.
So for the listeners who don't really know, can you give a little bit of an inside look into what breeding season or this time of year entails for Vista Equine, and then just breeding season in general?
So typical day, you come into a breeding farm on any breeding day. Pretty much at any breeding farm, it's going to be the same. We get here, we need to start checking mares, because we need to confirm semen orders, cancel semen orders, all that. And so from 7 o'clock in the morning, probably till noon, we're palpating mares. And then we'll start palpating our recipient mares or our surrogate mares. Once we're done with them, then we'll start doing our embryo flushes and transferring embryos. And then by the time we're done with that, kind of the end of the day, we'll still have embryos getting shipped into us, like flying into us at night. So there's embryos that we're transferring then. One thing that has kind of been a big change, like from when I started, is we had to do surgical embryo transfers. So you'd cut the mare's flank, pull the uterus out, poke a hole in it, put the embryo in that uterus, and then sew her up. So to do an embryo transfer, it took about an hour.
Oh, wow.
And the majority of our business was shipped in embryos. There wasn't as many embryo transfer farms in the country as there is now. So we get embryos from Florida, Maine, California, Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, we spent pretty much all night transferring embryos, and back in those days, Vaughn and Jill, they worked 7 days a week, and when I say 24 hours a day, they work 24 hours a day. So but with all that, there's still mares foaling that you have to attend to, breeding mares with frozen semen, cooled semen, semen getting flown in, FedExed in. Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts to a breeding farm, and then keeping all the foals healthy, all the mares healthy, all those sort of things. So there's a lot of moving parts. If you've never been at a breeding farm during the heat of it, just come and be a fly on the wall, and you'll really appreciate how your mare gets in foal.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of exciting times. Especially at 3 in the morning when you get called.
Exactly.
Are there any misconceptions or myths about breeding season that you can bust for us?
I don't know that there's any myths about breeding season. Most people understand that it's, you have basically February to June to make all of your money for the year, right? So you're working hard during those months, but then the other times it's not as big a. Yeah. You're not hammered mentally and physically like you are during the breeding season. Mm-hmm. I just don't know of any myths that are out there, I don't think there's any missing the breeding season. Like, it's out there for everybody to see, and people walk in and they know, well, they've had a long day, and you come in June and they're like, man, it's been a long breeding season, But, I think everybody, doesn't matter if it's Vista Equine or any breeding farm around the country. I mean, our main goal is to get pregnancies.
Yeah.
Keep them pregnant. I think that's, I guess if you're going to say a myth, I don't think it's really a myth, but, people think, well, they don't care about my mare. She hasn't won a ton of money, or she's not a big name mare. Every mare is important. It's to us, it doesn't matter if that mare has not won a dime and you bought her for $500, or she's won $1 million and you bought her for $1 million. We're trying just as hard to get that $500 mare in full as we are that $1 million mare, and the same with a foal on the ground. I mean, when that mare's foaling, doesn't matter if that's a $1 million baby or $500 baby, we want it to live, and we want pregnancies. I say that across the board. I visit with a lot of farm managers and veterinarians from breeding farms all over the country, and we want pregnancies. We want to do whatever it takes to get pregnancies, so.
Yeah. And then I just thought of this, and I know there's a few, I've heard a few people online that talk about, like, when you have, like, an older brood mare that has had a lot of babies, and people are like, oh, you're just overbreeding this mare, and you don't care about her, you just want more babies. Like, what would you say to those people that that are kind of ignorant? And I have tons of them that come in here, and people are breeding because they want to reserve that bloodline, those genetics. They want to keep that in their herd. It doesn't bother a mare to have a foal every year. I mean, it honestly, they do probably better having a foal every year than they do if you bred her once and then skip 4 years. They're built for reproduction. They're meant to have babies. And so, to me, I've seen mares, as long as you keep them in good, healthy condition, those mares should carry babies into their 20s, With assisted reproduction, we can get more babies out of a mare, extend her reproduction life, and I don't see any problem with that. And you'll always know the economy, or not the economy, but the market will tell you whether you should keep breeding that mare or not. Right? If that mare's babies aren't worth anything, then most owners aren't going to keep breeding her. But if she has good genetics, and you want to preserve those genetics, shoot, why not get some babies out there? I love that. That's so good. So good. So we've talked about this previously, is something you implement in your program is good horsemanship practices.
Correct.
And the care for the mares and the babies and the yearlings and all them. Can you dive a little bit more into the importance of proper horsemanship practice in breeding facilities, and then what that can mean down the line for these young horses?
So I'm a big component in horsemanship. I grew up in northeastern Nevada with some of the best horsemen around. They didn't just train the horse physically, they trained it mentally. In reproduction, you have to still be a horseman in the fact that if that horse is stressed out, she's not going to get in foal. And when a horse stresses, reproduction is the first thing to shut down, to go into survival mode. So the least amount of stress we can have on a mare, the better chances we have of getting her in foal. So the way we handle that mare, the way we handle her foal, will help us get her in full. Then we fast forward into, once that foal's born, being able to handle that foal in a way that the owners get it home, they can halter it. They can lead it around. They can vaccinate it. They can get their feet done. It just gives that foal a better opportunity to be successful, right? Have a successful career. We offer sales prep for horses that are going to sales. So we'll bring them in July of their yearling year, and we work with them, kind of re-halter breaking them, so to speak. Most of them are halter broke, but we're re-halter breaking them, getting them back to knowing, come to pressure, and humans aren't terrible. We can touch you all over, and it's not a big deal. One thing that I've noticed in the last 2 or 3 years is people will bring horses to us that they don't intend to sell. They want to keep them.
Yeah.
But they want them to go through sales prep and have us do that job, because once they go to the trainers, all that work's done. The trainer can go right into doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so good with keeping the mares calm, and everything's right. About them.
Yeah. So we get a lot of interns from colleges, and I think that's the biggest thing I stress to them is proper horsemanship. Being able to handle a horse correctly so that horse is safe, the human's safe. I tell everybody, number 1 rule around here is human safety. Number 2 rule is horse safety. And there's really only those 2 rules.
Yeah.
And so those interns are learning how to properly halter horses, how to handle horses in a breeding situation or holding for a veterinarian, because a lot of them are wanting to go to vet school, or they're wanting to go into the breeding program, and that's things they need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to continue on with that, which this is obviously an important part of running a successful breeding facility. What have you found, other than horsemanship, to be beneficial to your business that you think others can take away from and put towards their businesses?
Cleanliness. Being clean and organized, right? I always tell everybody reproduction isn't sterile, but it is clean, and it needs to be clean. So we really harp on things being clean, especially in our lab, in our stock area, and being organized, so that when clients come in, everything runs smoothly. Paperwork, vaccinations, all of that sort of stuff that you have to have. If you're not clean and you're not organized, you're not going to be successful. Yeah. And honestly, that's in any business, honestly.
Yeah, just being able to know where the paperwork is, so you're not mixing semen or embryos or
all those things. Yeah. I mean, you have to be really on top of it.
Yeah, great. I love that. So something we've also discussed a little bit is looking to the future in the industry, and not only in terms of growth, but how we take care of the horses and the clients and everything in between. Someone that's worked professionally in this industry for many years in both the racing and the showing worlds, what have you seen in terms of breeding trends that you think have helped make it better? And then do you see any other predictions going into the future?
Kind of the big trend, especially here the last few years, it's cool to be a cowboy again, right? Mm-hmm. You can blame that on whatever, whether it was COVID and, people were locked in their houses, but there was people that had horses and they could go ride their horse, mm-hmm. So it was cool to do that. And then with Taylor Sheridan and the TV shows that we have, it's cool to be a cowboy again, right? And so people are wanting to get into horses. And so when there's a new influx of people coming in, of course, horse prices are going to go up. People are going to breed more. But I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, kind of trend-wise, is people are breeding better horses. That mare that may not be the top of their herd, they may sell her and she might become the top of somebody else's herd, but they're trying to breed better genetics. breed to better stallions. There's still quite a few people that are breeding to those older stallions because they are great. They're great stallions, have great genetics. But there's young sons coming that are outdoing them, that are better than they are. And we see that in the racing horse deal. Dash for Cash in his day, no one thought anybody would be better than him. And then his son, First Down Dash, comes along, and he puts Dash to Cash to shame, And then along comes Corona Cartel, and then Walk Through Fire. And they just outproduce themselves, which is how it should be, right? Yeah. We should outproduce the next generation. Yeah. And so I think we're still on that trend. I've watched the Cutting Horse for Charity, the Reining Horse for Charity, the All-American for Charity. These horses are athletes now. Mm-hmm. Not to say that those horses back in the day were not athletes. Right. They were athletes. But there might have been 2 or 3 athletes, and the rest of them were just okay.
Yeah.
Now, every horse in the finals has a chance of winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think we've just bred better horses, and as a whole,
elevated the level a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So I foresee that just keeping on going. I think there's a lot of smart people, book-wise, that know how to match genetics together, and then there's those old-time horse people that know, okay, you cross this phenotype with this phenotype and you're going to get this, or you cross this genotype with this genotype and you're going to get this.
Yeah.
So I think we're just going to get better and better horses. And with that, I think we've made better horsemen. Talking to trainers, they're having to change kind of how they train because these horses are more athletic than what they started with. So they're having to change their training program. So I'm excited about the horse industry. I think no matter where you go, you just see some great horses, whether it's at a weekend team roping or weekend barrel racing, reinings. There's just phenomenal horses out there left and right.
Yeah. Everyone wants, they want to be able to perform at their best, but, and that just means we have to get better with how the horses are bred and how they're trained and all that stuff.
Right. So I think another thing that the industry has done is made it to where every horse has a place to compete. You look at the barrel racing, they have their 4D, 3D, 2D, 1D. Right. So those horses maybe that aren't Scorpions, they still have a place they can win money. In the reining, there's 4 levels, that horse might not be a level 4 for charity horse, but he dang sure going to be competitive in the 2 and the 1.
Yeah.
Or in
the non-pro.
Yeah, and so there's places for these horses to go, even if it's not, say, the most talented or the best minded or whatever you want to say. It has a place to compete. And now with the roping for charities coming on, they even have more places to go. So I just see horses always being something that people are going to want to be into.
Yeah, yes, that's so good. And that kind of ties into my next question of, with breeding getting better and better, we've almost kind of seen it get more specialized over the last few years of people breeding more for reining or cow horse or Western pleasure or whatever it may be. Do you think this specialization of breeding has been better for the promotion of the industry, and do you think it's been healthier for the horse?
That's a tough question because I do think it's been better for the industry. Mm-hmm. Because we're now breeding for specific traits, right? And so we're specializing in that. I actually foresee in the future that we're going to kind of start breeding for more all-around type horses. You already see the cow horse people doing it.
Yeah.
They're trying to breed that one that can cut a cow that could go win at the NCHA for charity, or go to the NRHA for charity and do it. They're kind of, in my mind, the pioneers. Even though I'm not in that industry, but I think they're looking outside and saying, okay, how can we cross these to get a better cow horse, And consequently, those cow horses, a finished bridle horse is worth who knows how much money.
Right.
Because it can go do the reining, it could go do the ranch riding, it can go be a rope horse, it can be anything it wants to be once it's a finished bridle horse and the cow horse, So I kind of foresee that our industries, we're going to kind of cross-pollinate a little bit into trying to get better individuals, because we've been breeding similar lines and kind of almost painted ourselves in a corner to where we're needing to look outside to find those horses that are going to cross over into our event,
Yeah, I think that's so interesting to me, and I think one thing that came to mind as you were saying that was with the American Performance Horsemen, where we have cow horse, reining, and cutting.
Yeah.
I think they're all that group is talking to each other, and I think it can lap over into other disciplines and everything.
For sure, I 100% agree that has kind of brought those three together and got them talking.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see even training trends that come out of that.
Yeah. That is so good. So this has been awesome. Everything you've said has been amazing and so interesting. I love it. I love your story. For the newer breeders or people who haven't bred that often, do you have any final little tips or advice for them going into either their first season or their second season in the breeding?
Those people are the ones I enjoy the most. Mm-hmm. That person that's never bred a mare, never raised a foal, but they got a mare and they want to get a baby out of it. Those people I enjoy tons because they're just excited and they're absorbing everything that you're telling them, right? So the advice I give is, one, educate yourself. Get as much education as you can, whether that's coming to a breeding farm and sitting down with the breeding manager or the veterinarians during the off season and educating yourself on what you need to do to be successful to get your mare in foal. Yeah. And then picking stallions. Everybody will flip through a magazine. I guess they don't flip through magazines anymore. They go through Facebook or TikTok or whatever. But, you pick that stallion you like and you think it's going to cross well, and you've talked to your friends and your trainer and everybody, and man, this is the magic cross. Yeah. Well, we picked that out. But now we need to make sure that this horse can ship semen if we're going to ship semen. Yeah. Is he frozen semen only? How is his frozen semen? Is it good? Would it be better to take my mare to the stallion farm? Mm-hmm. Asking those questions, how fertile that stallion is. Bringing your mare in and getting her checked. The biggest thing that I want to emphasize to all horse owners is try to breed that mare before she's 8 years old. Do not wait until she's 20 and you're done showing her to breed her. That's like trying to get a 70-year-old woman pregnant. It gets tougher the longer that you wait. That 8 to 10 is kind of that sweet spot of, okay, we can still get her in foal. She's not an old maiden. Mm-hmm. We have a better chance of getting her in foal. Right. So just know the longer you wait past 10, the harder it's going to be to get that mare in foal. Yeah. And I get it. You're showing her, you're riding her, you're enjoying her, or you're finally at that point where you can have a baby and now your mare's 20 years old. Yeah. But it definitely will cost you more, mm-hmm. and your chances of having it be successful are less. Yeah.
Yeah. There's more risks of the mare boarding or something going wrong.
Yeah. Exactly. The older that mare gets, the older her DNA is. Yeah. And the older that DNA is, the harder it is to get it to reproduce.
Yeah. That's so good. This has been so interesting. So I like to end my interviews with a little this or that. So I'm going to give you 2 options, and you're going to tell me which one you prefer.
Okay.
All right. Mornings or evenings?
Mornings.
Mornings. All right. All right. Mares or stallions?
Mares, 100%. I will never own a stallion. I will say this on that podcast. If I ever own a stallion that's past 2 years old, somebody can come and slap me right in the face.
Yeah, you'd rather deal with the Steven, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. Yeah. Appetizers or desserts?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because I have a sweet tooth, but I have a very slow metabolism. So I normally go for the appetizers. That's a tough one. I'd have to go with desserts then.
All right, yeah, good one.
To hell with my weight.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs, 100%.
So I love your insights on breeding. It's been so amazing. Thank you again for coming on.
No problem. Thank you.
I know you're not on social media, but if people want to find out more about Vista Equine or you or the program, where can they do that?
So VistaEquineColorado.com is our website, and you can also, I'm on Facebook. I'm not on a bunch of the other ones as of yet, I guess. But I never thought I'd be on Facebook, but I am. And or you can just stop in. Yeah. You know, we're right here north of Ptarmigan, west of Windsor, and stop in, especially in the off season, which would be July to December. You'll get a lot of attention then. Come February, if you're coming between February and June, probably not going to get as much attention, you know. But yeah, we're open to having anybody come in and pick our brains. So.
Great. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I am thrilled about the state of how horse breeding looks and where it will go into the future for the industry after that conversation with Jake. I hope you feel just as inspired as I do after hearing his opinions and his vast knowledge on running an equine breeding facility. Breeding season can mean a lot of long days and sleepless nights. But the outcome is always worth it when we see what these babies can turn into and what they can provide for the equine industry. Here is your friendly reminder to please follow me at The Educated Cowgirl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok so you can be notified when I release new episodes. And if you want to show how you like this episode, take a screenshot and share it to your stories and tag me at The Educated Cowgirl. And don't forget to also show how you like and support the show by please leaving me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Educated Cowgirl Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, learned something new, and will come back for more. But for now, stay blessed and ride on, cowgirls.